There's been a few questions about inserting hyperlinks and action buttons into the PowerPoint presentation. And so I wanted to start off by saying, don't think about this assignment as a presentation that you would use to stand up and teach in front of the class. Think about it more as an activity that on the computer students would come to the computer and sit down and work through this independently as like a tutorial or a small quiz after you've completed a lesson. And I think thinking about it that way might help. So it's an interactive activity for students to do one-on-one with the computer. Okay, so it says that you need 13 slides and that slide 1 is the title. Slide 2 has all of that information that we've been putting on all of our projects. Slide 3 has the instruction, and that does not mean directions. Slide 3 through 12 is the instruction, it's what you're teaching them. And then a conclusion at the end. So we need 13 slides, and then there's some additional, these are the things that have to be included, some hyperlinks and action buttons. And then at the end, it says you can save it as a PowerPoint show or PPS or PPSX. And this way it hides all the editing features when kids use it. So I'm going to do a quick walkthrough on how to do some of these features. I think it might help you out. I'm using PowerPoint version 2008. All versions can do this, but things may be located in a slightly different place. And so if you're using a different version than PowerPoint 2008, and you are having a hard time finding these features, we can post in the discussion board or you can email, and we'll help you locate where to find it in your version of PowerPoint. So first we need to open PowerPoint. And we said on slide 1 was the name of your project, and I'm going to do mine on the 8 planets. It took me a while to get out of the habit of saying 9 planets. When I was in school we learned 9 planets and now it's 8. So, and then your name goes on it there. And then it says that you need how many slides? 13 total. So we want to go ahead and add additional slides. So we want to insert new slide. And we actually want, 13 of these. So you could go ahead and create all 13 slides. Okay, so now I have all 13 of my slides ready over here. The first slide is my title slide. The second slide that I want, remember that was the information. I don't need this title bar, so I'll delete it off of this slide and make this larger. And this is where I put my, it said, the content standard, etc. All of that goes on the second slide. Slides 3 through 12 were some instruction, and the last slide was a conclusion. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to make slide 12 my conclusion. And remember, the student is who is viewing this, so you want to write everything like you're talking to the student. So I'll say, you have learned, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going to make slide 13 one that says incorrect. And that might not make sense right now, but as I move forward, you'll see. Okay. So let's say my example is about the 9 planets. So on slide 3, I'm going to talk about, give some planet info. And maybe on slide 4, I'll have some planet info. And then say slide 5, I want to ask a question. What planet is closest to the sun? And then I'm going to give 3 choices. Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn. Okay, so I have 3 choices for them to choose from. What planet is closest to the sun? And so this is slide 5. Slide 6, I'm going to have it say correct. Mercury is closest. Okay, so on slide 5, Mercury is my correct answer. So I highlight it and I want to insert a hyperlink. So I want to insert and hyperlink, and I don't want it to go to a web page. I want it to go somewhere in my document. I want it to go to another slide in my document. I want to locate the anchor where I want it to go, and I wanted it to go to, on my slide titles, slide 6, correct. And say OK. So this has become now a hyperlink that a student could click on and go to the next slide, or the correct slide. But what if they chose Jupiter or Saturn? Well, I do the same thing. Jupiter, I insert a hyperlink. I want it to go somewhere in my document, and the anchor should be, but where do I want it to go this time? I want it to go all the way down to the incorrect slide. And I would do that same thing for Saturn. Okay, and so then on slide 7, I may have another question. What planet has life? And then the same thing, I would give them 3 answers, and slide 8 would be the correct slide with some feedback. But if they got it incorrect, it would, they need to still link to that 13 incorrect slide. Okay, so then what I need to do is, because in PowerPoint by default, it automatically goes to the next slide when you click the mouse, but I don't want them to be able to do that. I want them to have to choose one of these answers. And so on my slides, I can turn off where it goes forward on the mouse click, and so that they can't use that. So that would be under my transitions tab to turn off advance on mouse click feature, and we can look at that in just a minute. But before we do that, I want to show you how to add the action buttons. So I want for them to move forward, I would go to the slideshow tab, action buttons, and I need them to go to the next slide, and I just draw it right on. I'm going to copy this button, and that just sends them to the next page. So on each page, I'm going to hit paste. To have these forward buttons on each page. But on this page, I don't want a forward button. I don't want them to go forward. I want them to choose one of these answers. So I can leave the forward button on that, and I can put one on the correct slide. Again, this slide will have a question, so I don't want a forward button. I skip that one, and I can put this forward button on the rest of my slides, except for the slides that ask questions, because you don't want them to move forward. You want them to answer the question. Okay, and so then on the conclusion slide, I don't want a forward button there either, because that's the end. There's nowhere forward for them to go, and if they went forward, they would see this incorrect slide. Now, what if somebody missed my first question that I asked? What planet is closest to the sun? They chose Jupiter. It's going to hyperlink them to slide 13 that says incorrect, but they need to go back so they can try again. So I don't want a forward arrow, but I do want an action button. I want to go back to the last slide that they viewed. Don't do previous slide, because that'll take them to the slide before, and it might not be the right question. So go back to the last slide that they viewed, and that'll send them back to the question that they came from. And then you just use your mouse to put it on the page, and that will take them back to the last slide that they viewed. So I can show you how that would look in presentation mode. And they click on it. Well, I've got to start at the question. I'm sorry. So I start at this question and go to the presentation mode. What planet is closest to the sun? I'm going to miss it and go to Jupiter. Incorrect. Try again. So I hit the button. It takes me back to the question. And then I have another chance. Mercury. Correct. So it turns into a fun little interactive quiz for them. So the last thing I wanted to show you is on the transition menu. What you'll need to do is make sure to find the transitions, we want to, let's see, we'll go to Format. Oops. Oh, under the slideshow again, Transitions. And again, this is in version 2008. And you have some options, and this advanced slide on mouse click, we want to uncheck that and apply it to all slides. Make sure you apply it to all slides. And what that does is when you're in slideshow view, let me start back on slide number 1, sorry. When you're in slideshow view, if a student were to just click the mouse, they couldn't, it wouldn't do anything. They couldn't go anywhere. They have to use your buttons. And the reason that's important is because when they get to a quiz question, you don't want them to just click randomly and move forward. They have to choose an answer to move forward. So that's, you know, a little advanced, but that's kind of how to do that. And then when you're completely done, and you cannot do this until you're completely finished, because you save your PowerPoint, of course, but then save it again, File, Save As, name it whatever you want, choose where you want to save it, but under the format, it's automatically in a PPT, which is a PowerPoint presentation, but you can change it to a PPS or PPSX. And what happens there is just like in the samples, when the student opens it, it automatically opens in the presentation view instead of the edit view. So the students never get to see all of the slides or the edits. They just get to see the presentation that you made. So it would be nice to save it as the PPS or PPSX, depending on which version you have. It doesn't matter. That is all.